Well, I'm Jeanette Lowe. I'm a visual artist working mainly through the medium of photography. I've been working as a full-time artist for the last 10 years. Prior to that, I worked in communications, IT, you name it. I did a little bit of everything. I actually have a background also in marketing and design, and it was through web development that I started to move more into design. Photography has run right through my life. I've always been interested in it, but 10 years ago I just decided that I would focus primarily on that and see where that went. Pearse House was a very personal project for me. My grandmother was one of the first residents of Pearse House in the 1930s. When they built the flats, they were replacing the tenement cottages on the site where my grandmother would have lived. And my mother was raised there until she got married. And then we moved out to Drimna. I mean, I hadn't been back in the flats and had no family there when I went back in 2009 to start taking photographs. And I had my own presumptions about the flats from media that I would have obviously watched and heard over the years. And I was blown away really that within a half an hour I had met a lady who had been in school with my mother and discovered that it wasn't the transient community that I thought it might have been in the inner city. It was actually a very old community, living, as I would say, almost invisibly in the heart of the city.
Know just what to do, don't you?
Well, after the project on Pearse House, Dublin City Council actually, I think they were very interested in what I was doing and had been very supportive because it was a very positive project, because I felt there had been a lot of negative media about the inner city and I wanted to show the positive. So they asked me to engage with a community project in Charlemont Street, which was being demolished at the time. I got into recording the demolition, which I found very interesting because there are very few people actually who will stand and watch their home, and maybe their home for a number of generations, being demolished, unless it's like a war situation or it's by choice. So I found that very interesting, and I engaged with the community through a project. And one thing I've always tried to bring into my project is I've tried to involve the community in it and make it part of their project as well. So along with the new photographs that I take, when I did Pearse House, I had some family photographs that would have been taken in the flats, and I invited people to exhibit with me by bringing their, old black and white photographs. And I mean, if you know black and white photographs, everybody looks wonderful. They dress up for them. They're very elegant. And I think it just reflects a community in a different way, maybe, than we might think about some inner city communities. And a lot of people take pride in that. So I did that in Charlemont Street as well. And it really stimulates conversation and gets people to talk about the past and the sense of community in all these communities. So I moved from Charlemont Street to St. Teresa's Gardens, where I started to record the demolition there. And I have to say, I like recording demolition because in some ways it's easier when you don't have to interact. You just go in and lose yourself with a building and maybe, try to visualize the community that lived there. this year, as part of the Five Lands Festival, I was delighted to be involved, or to be invited to be involved. And I was going to use it to exhibit some of what I call my disappearing Dublin photographs, which are taken from a series of demolitions around the city, mainly social housing, Charlemont Street, St. Teresa's Gardens, Croke Villas. I'm also photographing the demolition of the ESB building on Fitzwilliam Street. I've been doing that for a number of years. So it's just, I mean, there is a big change in the way Dublin is beginning to look. And I've been recording a lot of that. I was also going to collaborate with them on a very nice project that I was really looking forward to with Dublin Port, to photograph some of the old dockers. I know I've worked with the dockers before, and like my great-grandfather was a button man, as they say, and you know, a lot of the dockers lived in Pearse House. I mean, they lived on both sides, the North and the South Quay, so the history overlaps there with a lot of people. So I was really looking forward to that as well. My exhibition in CHQ, what I was planning to do there was it would be mainly photographs, but I also wanted an installation as part of that, because I think the demolition in the city is very closely related to the housing crisis in the city, and I wanted in some way to just reference that because of, I suppose, the year we're in. Well, I find my work very challenging, and that's the way I want it to be. I love doing portraits. I find them really challenging, but I love it. I find the work I'm doing recording demolition becomes more important when I look back. When the building is gone and I look back, the photographs take on a much different meaning. So I think that's really important, and I hope at some stage in the future, when I'm well gone, that those photographs will have some value to someone. But you know, that's what I find. My work, I hope, is always changing. I mean, I had hoped also to collaborate with another artist on one piece for the exhibition in CHQ. Yeah. And I like to do that when I have an exhibition, maybe bring in someone who can add to my exhibition, and you know, whether it's through, you know, doing a painting or a collage or something.
My name is Anto Whelan. That little photograph was taken outside Mrs. Field's flat, number 5H. She and her daughter Kitty were like second mothers to me when I was a kid, and I used to just pop in and out whenever I felt like it. I was born in 45, and I'd say I was about 2 in it. I'm retired, being 70, and I paint as a hobby, and I display my paintings every Sunday when weather permits at Marion Square.
When my mother was growing up in the flats, there was a progression of where you would go. They were offered a flat in town, but my father decided, you know, he wanted to build his own house. Now, it wasn't easy. He had to work hard, and one of my uncles, you know, thought they were mad, you know, having a mortgage for 30 years or whatever. But he did it, and you know, and all my uncles, you know, my grandmother had 13 children, and my aunts and uncles, they all moved on and went out into the suburbs. And when I had my exhibition, a lot of those people who were living out, you know, in Raheny or Terenure or, you know, down the country, came back to the exhibition because they'd never had a reason to come back before, and that was an unexpected thing about the exhibition. But they flocked back, and when they came back, they talked about how positive the community was. Now, I had been listening to my mother saying, oh, they were the best people, but when you kept hearing it, you had to believe it.
Yeah.
And as somebody said to me, we had nothing, but we had community.